Hey y'all, Lily here. Today we are discussing a local legend for me, and it is the haunting of one Alexander Hostler. He was a local man here in Wilmington, North Carolina. He was supposedly visited by the ghost of his deceased best friend and companion, Samuel Jocelyn. And if you are a local, you might recognize these names already. Samuel was reportedly buried alive, and he visited Alexander for 3 nights after his burial, begging and pleading with his friend to dig him up because he had been buried alive. And finally, after 3 nights, Alexander did in fact dig up his friend and found him buried alive. And this is the story of that. Now, it is a bit of a gruesome tale, unfortunately, and it did happen many, many years ago. So please do not take my lightheartedness as a this is no big deal kind of thing. Of course, it was very much a big deal. Nobody should be buried alive. It's just, this is one of my favorite local legends. So I get a little giddy thinking about being able to share it with you guys. Yes, I am lovingly holding one of my books. It is the book that this comes out of. It is Haunted Wilmington and the Cape Fear Coast. You can see how well loved this particular book is for me. I've had it since I was a little girl. This was, let's see, what is the copyright date on this thing? It's forever ago. This was printed in 1995. That tells you how long I have had it. And wow, my parents paid $10 for this book, but way back then, you know, they loved me. But this story, again, is very real, and it comes from my local area, and I will give you guys just the brief overview of it. In preparing this piece for researching the lore, I only went off of my book as well as the stories that I have heard growing up. I have been to the cemetery's location many times with ghost tours and even like grade school field trips and everything like that. So I am very much familiar with this area. I've driven past it numerous times. It's literally in the heart of downtown Wilmington. If you ever make your way down there, it's very easy to get to, and it's right on the way to the Bellamy Mansion or Thayen Hall, both of which are also supposedly haunted. So you can have your own little ghost tour if you wanted to. But in the case of this story, it takes place in 1810, and as I said, it was about a gentleman being buried alive. So if you do have kind of like, a squeamishness about this, please just, I very much, want to be respectful of anybody who has a fear of being buried alive. And I myself have claustrophobias, so that's right there with it. And I'm not going to go into massive details or anything like that, but it is a ghost storytelling of the situation. So I just kind of want people to be aware in case they have a very legitimate fear. Samuel Jocelyn was the son of a prominent attorney, and he was a companion to Alexander. They grew up together, they attended church together, Sunday school together, they went to classes together, they played along the riverbanks pretending to be pirates, they went to every cotillion together. They were perfect Southern gentlemen. They never had a scandal or a crossword between them. And one summer, they were having a discussion with some friends about life after death and whether or not people could, if they were dead, contact the living and vice versa. And while you had people who said yes and people who said no on both sides of this, both Samuel and Alexander firmly believed they could contact each other after death, and they made a pact that they would try to do so in the event that one of them passed away unexpectedly and the other one was still left alive. Now, a few months later, Samuel was out riding his horse, and this was pretty much the only time the men were not together, according to the story. And he was riding along the low-lying sandy roads of the riverbanks when he was thrown from his horse 2 men with a horse-drawn cart saw him and his horse. They didn't see the accident happen. They just saw his body and his horse grazing a little ways away. They rushed his body home, and the family doctor tried to revive Samuel, but they could not, and he was pronounced dead. And 2 days later, he was laid to rest in the St. James Churchyard Cemetery that is at the corner of 4th Street and Market Street here in Wilmington. Alex was overcome with grief and guilt, and he blamed himself for not being there with his friend, and his family just kind of left him alone to grieve. So the first night, he's sitting there, he's grieving, he's all upset, and he gets awakened by a vision, a ghostly vision of Samuel, who comes to him and says, "Alexander, why did you let them bury me when I was not yet dead?" And Alex, he all upset, says, "You were dead." And the ghost vanishes. Well, the next night, he had chalked up the first night to grief and hallucination. The next night, he's all distraught and sitting there in his grief, and he sees Samuel come to him again. And this time, Samuel is a little bit more worse for wear, and he's begging again, "Alexander, why did you let them bury me when I was not yet dead?" And Alex again tells him, "You were dead. I saw you. You were dead." And the ghost vanishes. The third night that this happens, he is just at his breaking point. He hasn't been able to sleep. The ghost of his friend comes to him one more time, pleading, "Alexander, why did you let them bury me when I was not yet dead?" But this time, he's even more decayed and grotesque looking. And so Alexander goes. He gets his friend. I'm not sure if it's Louis Tomer or Lewis. I'm gonna go with Lewis. It's spelled like how my dad's name's spelled, so I'm just gonna go with that. He gets Lewis, and Lewis is a good friend, but also a credible and prominent member of the local community. So he is somebody that would believe, or could be believed, outside of Alexander in his grief. They get permission of Samuel's family to exhume the body, but they were only allowed to do so in secret because they didn't want the scandal and people watching. So they, under the cover of night, began digging up, and before long they hit his coffin, and using the lantern light, they noticed to their horror that one side of the coffin was loosened, and when they opened up the lid, the white inner lining of the coffin had been shredded. It was bloody, and the clothing was all torn, and Samuel himself was flipped over in his grave, and his fingers had been bloodied where he had clawed to trying to get out of his grave. So Alexander, of course, never recovered from this, and until the day he died, he was guilt-ridden and grief-stricken, of course, at losing his friend in such a manner. Now, again, this was a local tale, and is one I have grown up with. The facts are really simple on this one. Samuel did exist. He was a real person. He actually was buried, according to my research on Find a Grave, on I don't know if I said buried or if he died. He died on March 29th, 1810. There is a slight discrepancy between my book date and this. This says he, like I said, died March 1810. The book has the accident taking place after the summer of 1810, but it is what it is. My book does not mention that Samuel was married, but my research did find that he had a wife, that they had gotten married the summer before, and they had had an argument that caused Samuel to storm out of their home and hop on his horse and go riding, and that is when he died. So that's pretty much it for this. It's when I say that this is a cut and dry kind of thing, it very much is. Now, I did get the idea for this post, not just because it is a local legend, but because if you have followed along on my website and on my social media, you will have seen that we did have a pocket lore post, and I'm going to need some help sounding this one out. Don't be surprised at that. I think it's taphephobia. It is the fear of being buried alive. So we started with our lore lingo for that, and from there I found a pocket lore piece of a premature burial signal, and it was an article I found on Pinterest, and I tried to find the original source for it, and I couldn't find the original source for that particular one, but I did find other sources of very similar articles out there and devices. I researched even the name of the person that is mentioned in this article, and I found someone who semi-matches, but not really. They match in name and the fact that they had a descendant in Buffalo, New York, whereas on this it just says that it was this person in Buffalo, New York, but there is a real, very real premature burial coffin that I added like links to and everything, and I do mention on the written post for this piece of lore. Again, there's nothing major about this one. It was just a fun little local legend I wanted to bring to you guys, and I do have, you know, a couple other things all kind of related to that. And the fun thing with this one is a random little thing. I do have another piece that is planned, and it is based on the real story of Annabelle Lee, you know, one of Edgar Allan Poe's most famous pieces. Well, Mr. Poe also wrote a story called The Premature Burial, and so that's just kind of interesting that our stories kind of link there. And then, of course, because of, you know, rabbit holes being rabbit holes and stuff like that, when I opened up my book to read this particular story, you can see right here, I actually have in it a quote from one of Poe's pieces. So that's interesting. And yes, and actually, if you notice that Poe's birth year was a year before our story here takes place. Fun little random rabbit holes that we can just go down, and it all links back together. But that is all I have for you guys today. I am trying to get back into streaming and bringing you guys more of that kind of stuff. I kind of took a little break for the summertime. It was supposed to be a break, and then I got sick, and now I'm just trying to get back in the habit of doing things. I am still, like I said, trying to work on my office and getting it all put back together for you guys. That's neither here nor there. You guys don't care. But just, we are trying to get back into the norm of things and the swing of things. So be on the lookout for more things. I have some fun things planned, not only for the month of August and September, but also for October for Halloween. So please stick around for that. And I can't wait to see what I get to bring you guys next as I go down random rabbit holes in my research. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you all very soon.